Hey guys, so in a few months' time, I would have actually been out of the UK for 10 years. I left the UK when I was 16 years old. I think it was 16 or 17, something like this. 9 or 8 years, 10 years, whatever it is. I was pre-adult age working in, essentially going to university, right? And then I went to the Netherlands to study, left the Netherlands, moved back to London, only for a few months, worked for 3 different global fintechs. Then I made a decision. I was going to build my life somewhere else. And yes, I could have stayed in London earning great salaries, great commissions from banking in London, but I left. And I guess I really left because I felt Amsterdam, I had a love for Amsterdam, and I was like, hang on a second, what's Poland saying? What's this going on, And, basically nearly a decade later, I've lived in multiple countries. I've built multiple companies. I've also sold a business as well before. And I've legally paid almost nothing in income tax in my entire time, which is really beautiful. And it's because it's been a straight line. I've made mistakes. I've lived in places that didn't work. I've learned things the hard way that nobody tells you. I've tried to move to Switzerland. I've tried to do this. I've moved to Gibraltar, for example, did it all. Then my missus didn't like it at all. She felt trapped. She's a Russian passport holder. It didn't really work for her. So we always, think as parties as well. So I do understand how families come into play as well. And again, this is a real story of what happens when you actually leave, not the highlight reel, not the, the guru pitch. Basically, 10 years of reality, essentially speaking, or 8 or 9, whatever it actually is, Essentially, I'm born in 2000, if you didn't know that. And I'm Will Hodgson, I'm co-founder of HPT Group. And we help entrepreneurs, business owners, high net worth individuals, ultra high net worth individuals, crypto investors, and basically we structure their lives, companies, and essentially everything globally, generally speaking, right? So I've got to help dozens of clients now. I think it's high 70s, high 80s, whatever it is. Ask Steph, he knows the exact figures. We've done really well, grown this company really fast, actually, over 2.5, 3 years. But more importantly, I've actually lived through these structures myself. I've had Seychelles companies, I've had British Virgin Island companies, I've had Belize companies, I've had Gibraltar companies, I've had Hong Kong companies, multiple of them. I've actually sold a Hong Kong company as well. I've had UK companies, more than 10 of them. I've had companies, right? I've set up companies for clients and myself. And again, if you're in the UK right now, watching your tax bill grow and wondering if there's another way, yes, there is, okay? But it's not as simple as a one-way flight. Let me walk you through exactly what happens when you leave and what I wish I'd known from the start, okay? I was very lucky that I obviously left at the age that I did to study in the Netherlands. But again, I've then gone back to the UK. I was working in foreign exchange and payment services, that type of world, basically banking is a professional term. I was doing well, but every time I looked at, I only ever worked for a month each of these companies, actually, once to gain experience. I was always quite an early adopter of cryptocurrency as well, if anybody knew that. I'm not too big in crypto nowadays. I pulled out probably way too early. I was buying and selling Bitcoin when it was $600, when I was literally 14, 15, 16 years old. So I've done that. My father passed me a book, said I just got passed this at a conference called New Private Money. So that was in 2014. And I was just 14 years old, 13 years old, 14 years old. And again, I quickly understood the power of that, and obviously I benefited from that. But then I had a next problem. Hang on a second, how do I get this money into a bank account? Okay, so I've really learned what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. Income tax, national insurance, council tax. I was like, hang on a second, I have to pay council tax here. And I learned if I'm a student, you're not. There's always a few loopholes you can do, right? And then I was like, hang on a second, VAT, when I go back to the UK now, I really see the bill. I'm like, wow. And I look at VAT, I'm like, Jesus Christ. When you're in Hong Kong and stuff like this, other countries, you don't really type to see that one about Guernsey introducing a GST type of tax of, below 5%. In 2 years' time. We've seen a lot. Now, I look at, people 10, 20 years ahead of me in their careers. They're earning more, but they're all on the same treadmill, bigger salary, bigger tax. Nicer flat in London, nicer, flat in London, house in London that costs a fortune, Richmond, Mayfair, Soho, Notting Hill, all of these places, depending on who you are. I'm not going to go into those characters who live there, or Clapham, typical Clapham lawyers, you know what I mean? But I didn't have a grand plan. I just kind of followed the universe. And again, I've had to learn visas. But as I've mentioned before, my wife, girlfriend, is Russian. We've had to learn this, navigate this. That's why we moved to Dubai. Thailand, and that's just like, hang on, this is amazing. Through COVID, it was working really good as well. So, I've really always wanted to build something on my own, and I've always kept what I earned, generally speaking, and had the freedom to travel where I wanted to. The UK wasn't going to give me that, and in the future also citizenship as well, okay? So the early days, I really, it was really, really messy, to be honest, I had random ING bank accounts in the Netherlands, I had this, I had that, I was surviving on crypto. My father used to give me a little bit of money as well, a little bit of a monthly allowance as such. I'm not a trust fund baby, nothing like that, but I do come from an okay background, if that makes sense. I was very fortunate actually from that. But I always never really I didn't really get this office stuff, It's incredibly sporty, you see. I even spent time in Canada on a holiday visa, being a ski instructor. So that was a mid-career break just to see what's going on. And I obviously love to ski, And I wasn't really location dependent. I've, also been trading my entire life, generally speaking. Always been very fond of investments such as gold and silver. And always been withdrawing funds from that. And again, in a spread betting sense, it was very beneficial to me at the time. I still hold a lot of assets like this, but not really trading as such, more investing. But the first big lesson that I then look at people who are still in the UK is not just about getting on a plane. HMRC doesn't let you go easily. That's what's really, really key here. You need to really properly break your UK tax residency. Now, what this means is understanding the current residency tests. And again, that's day counting, test ties. It's not always the days as well. It's your ties to the UK. What connections to the UK can pull you back into that tax net? I had to cut ties. I wasn't just on an extended holiday. I was building a life elsewhere, no tax, no UK home, no UK job, limited days in the country, but I was a director of a UK company, as you naturally are as a young entrepreneur, which I'm sure you've all felt of before, right? So, at the end of the day, I've been through this myself, so I really, really want to share this message to you today, okay? So, let me go into a bit of a thing which a very personal experience, which was the Thailand tax trap. So I was living in Thailand. I first went to Thailand in 2021, but it was still in the mix of the COVID stuff, if you can remember the COVID restrictions. Popped back into the UK for a short period out of Mexico, then popped into Dubai, and I was like, okay, let's try out Thailand. Restrictions then came over there. It was like all this testing and all this stuff. I was like, I'm not doing that. So then I went to Thailand. On the surface, it was perfect. I did my quarantine, 2.5 weeks. I used to be a big cannabis smoker as a kid, and that's actually what got me out of cannabis, was doing that quarantine, and thank God I went through that, because that, really obviously helped me excel in life and business, XYZ. I was on my own in a foreign country when everyone else was locked up in the world, thinking, oh my God, there's another world over here. So first, the tax situation. Thailand technically, taxes residents on worldwide income. For a long time, there was a loophole. If you earn money offshore and didn't remit it into the following year, it wasn't taxed, and a lot of expats relied on this. The loophole was closed in 2024, unfortunately. I recently just left Thailand, and the rate went up to 35%, and it literally nearly hit me. Luckily, I was able to get away with it, but the amount of legal advice I had to speak to, what really annoyed me about guys, is I had advice from one person, and advice from the other person, and another person, and they were all different. So I was just like, what is this, if that makes sense? So the loophole essentially is closed. I'll tell you that fact. So basically, Thai banks don't want to deal with foreigners running offshore businesses, number one, and opening accounts is painful. International transfers, again, are scrutinised and not built for what we do as entrepreneurs, essentially. And third, the visa uncertainty of prices were going up to renew my thing. I've been there for 4 years, technically, and I was like, this is time to go for 5 years, I think, including the entire, when I first got the big visa, okay? So there's no proper entrepreneurship visa. You can just buy your way into a visa. And it was very uncertain in tax, very uncertain, okay? Then I moved to Dubai, while still being in Thailand as well. Again, zero income tax, world-class infrastructure, and everyone was doing it at the time. I thought, you know what, this is probably right for me. Very nice, clean lifestyle, really good. Turns out I didn't like it. It's a desert. It was really good for my wife, because obviously she's Russian, able to get her residence there, able to get documents there, banking there, really, really good stuff for her, really, really nice for her to have the opportunities just like a normal Westerner would do so, and be in an economy that's not racist, essentially. And look, there's real benefits. For tax position is genuine. No personal income tax, no capital gains, no tax on personal income. If you're properly a resident there, your money you receive is tax-free. That is partly true. But here's what the YouTube gurus don't tell you. Dubai is expensive and really expensive, especially if you're paying for your girlfriend as well. Rent is high, usually paid up front. We're talking 6 months or a full year in advance. Most people cannot do that, especially if they're just starting off as entrepreneurs. Generally, we don't really deal with these clients, but obviously I get a lot of inquiries that do so. Schools, healthcare, the schools are now fantastic, I must say. I went to some of the best schools in the UK. I was very fortunate in doing that. And what we learned about the schools in Thailand, Bali, Dubai is they're a different grade to schools in the UK now, in terms of the network there. Something I've really benefited from. I thought my family was very poor because of my friends around me. It's a completely bizarre comment to make, but it's the truth, and that's what I'm here to tell. Okay, guys. Then there's the substance question. Everyone says it's a free zone company, an Ajman, whatever. They think it's all sorted, but you are the only director. For me, it works okay because we're both there a lot. We're actually living there for tax reasons as well. And not just for 4 months here, we're there a lot anyways. We still are, actually. I'm there in a week and a half, but I'm no longer I'm Emirates ID holder. I'm still a company owner. I want to close down the company. I just go there now for a few business meetings. I don't structure my life around that. I've changed that. I've mentioned this in a new video. As you can see, I'm currently in Bali, and I also use Hong Kong as well. And it's very interesting, okay? And this is what I really, really did learn, okay? A Dubai free zone company isn't a magic hack. While you're still living in Europe, let's say for 6 months a year, it doesn't magically do that. Luckily, there wasn't really too much money that went through. I wasn't too successful in business. I was surviving on investments for a lot of my life, especially on spread betting, in terms of CFD trading XYZ. And I was very lucky and fortunate of that, but I saw people with businesses and German tax authorities, Danish tax authorities were coming from. And people living in Prague with a Dubai company. This doesn't really make sense, And again, since I first joined Dubai, banking's a lot harder to get. I'll tell you that for sure. I had to help my girlfriend get a bank. She's Russian. That used to be a lot easier than it is nowadays, okay? So accounts can be frozen for reviews, just like Revolut. It can become like the normal system. I'm not too pro Dubai. I think it is fantastic for the right type of person. Again, how we deal with clients at HPT Group is everything's case by case and tailored for the client. And that's why you use us instead of going to a random biased person that just goes, Malta, or Cyprus, or this. We are all just pure Dubai. We're open to all ideas. We don't have a conflict of interest. We charge consulting fees, and we have the parties around the world at very effective costs because that's what we do every single day. We help clients design these lives that are more asset protected, more globally free, and obviously much lower taxes generally speaking, and also making business work a lot more efficient, if that then makes sense. So after 10 years, 8 years of trial and error, if you include the UK for a little bit, and 10 years as a kid, right? Hong Kong is where serious business happens, and that's what I learned. Yes, Dubai was a huge space in commodity trading, we've seen in the commodity trading district. I think it's in JBR, in DMCC companies. It's the equivalent of Luxembourg in Europe. It's very common over there, right? But, Hong Kong is a genuine financial centre, which I now use in a general territorial tax system. I wish I discovered this a lot earlier. I wish I didn't have Dubai and I went straight to Hong Kong. It would have been much easier too, especially with a British passport. It's quite easy to live there, right? And if your income sourced outside from Hong Kong, you are not taxed there. So that's really, really key. And the banking actually works, okay? Real international banks understand cross-border business. It's there for international business. And that's a vast difference compared to UAE. A lot of business in UAE generally just domestically operate within the UAE and a little bit globally. If you're 100% UK clients of a UAE company, it just makes complete no sense. So all my operational companies are now in Hong Kong. Yes, I've tried Seychelles. Yes, I've done this. Yes, I've done that. I've made substance over here. I've done that. But the cheapest, most effective, easiest, efficient manner to run a business with all these Hong Kong operating companies. Even HPT Group has now been moved to Hong Kong. I think Nomad Capitalist uses Hong Kong. I think a lot of people are using Hong Kong. A lot of our clients, we propose Hong Kong to them. Legal advisors have advice on Hong Kong. All I hear every day is Hong Kong, Hong Kong, Hong Kong. Sometimes Singapore is better, especially if it's more family office work. Sometimes we can see Guernsey, Isle of Man. There's various structures at play. It really depends on the client. It's a unique basis. So I can now spend, in Bali a few months a year, come and go from Bali, pop into Phuket and Thailand still, of course. Yes, I'm not as fond of it as I used to be. It's got a little bit boring, and obviously I'm getting older, more family orientated right now. But yeah, spending part of the year in areas like this, maybe the Philippines for a few months, and then not just basically operating out of Hong Kong is really, really a good choice to do. And that's what I'm now doing. And it's the happiest I've been, the best for family, the best for business, the best for everything, right? And again, it brings that credibility in business of trust as well. So the structure behind this has evolved over the years, right? Holding companies, obviously you can imagine I've got PTCs, private trust companies, operational companies, proper substance, and everything's documented, and that's what I've really learned. There's no hack or loophole. It's a coherent setup that's designed to withstand scrutiny, I would like to say, and that's essentially what it teaches you about doing this ever since the age of 18. I've always been super interested in finance, and that's generally been a huge focus point of me. I've set up hedge funds. I've worked with over 70 clients around, probably, if you include banking, I've worked with over 100 clients around the world. And, I have deals where clients, do multi-billion dollars. And I've referred them over to a fintech. I obviously benefit from that. And, this is a fintech space. I work in also fintech as well. I have a fintech myself based in Canada. I've registered MSB. That obviously is a money service broker. But we essentially can open corporate accounts as well. So I'm pretty, I've sold companies as well. I've done this, I've done that, I've tried it. I think once I had a marketing business. I've had many businesses before, all the businesses that actually worked and took off, Some worked a little bit, others just completely went to zero. I tried a classic car business with a friend at the age of 18 as well, trying to sell classic cars and broker classic cars. I've tried loads of shit, and this is what has just worked today, and now 3 years, been doing really, really well. However, it's basically fintech and offshore consulting. And first, what I would recommend when I look back at all of my experience is leave properly. Don't half-arse leave the UK, as I did, where you're coming back and doing this, doing that. You still got UK businesses. Now times have changed a lot, where there's a lot more stricter regulations in place. And cut the ties and understand those residency tests. I'm very fortunate that it was very easy for me to do so, and luckily mine all checked out anyways. But if I did what I did right now and the new laws that just came in, then it wouldn't have been okay. So please be very careful when you do leave the UK. Second, don't chase 0% tax. The goal isn't to pay nothing. The goal is to build a business framework that's very efficient and a tax position that's efficient and legal. Okay, some zero tax options have lifestyle costs, banking problems, other substance, And again, third, get proper advice. I wish I reached out to someone like myself, who's now in my position. I've gone and sat, dealt with over 70 client structures and over 100 banking problems, or banking onboarding, right? And really, really understanding international structures, and especially the pros and callbacks to every single element. Ask every question of every element, why this is. And that's why we work with our clients on a consulting basis. So we would just remove the conflict of interest of upselling them a product. We essentially now work on cost prices for these and then consulting directly with the client, if that makes sense. So, what I wish somebody advised me this years ago. But to be honest, it was very different. I know I'm still young, but it was very different, like back in 2019 and 2020. Pre-COVID, it was so different to now, especially in what types of businesses people are running. We've seen the entire, the trend of globalization change, the introduction of CBDCs, the introduction of digital IDs. It's really a very faster than ever changing landscape, And people say London's bad now for crime. I was never really involved with crime in London, but my parents used to tell me London's always been like that, London's always been such a diverse, amazing city, and that's why it's amazing. I still love London. I miss London every single day to some extent. Not the weather, not this, not taxes, right? But I don't mind visiting London. It's a fantastic place to be, okay? But your personal life matters, and that's my point of saying that. Where you live affects your taxes, right? But there's also a personal element to this, For example, if I wasn't with my Russian girlfriend, maybe we'd be living in Prague. I really, really like Prague. Flat 15% tax, that could be a great strategy for someone like you. Again, and if you obviously did want to become a client, you can apply it down below. And another comment I would probably make, being young, is probably think long term, Optimizing a year's tax bill versus building something that's sustainable. Yeah, I'd probably choose the building something very sustainable. Rules can change, countries change, and your life changes, but flexibility into your structure. And my biggest regret is probably not getting more passports. I had so many opportunities to do so, and because I've traveled so much and I was moving from country to country to country, I actually never had a real residency that was more than 3 years old. And when you get to 3 years, it's only 2 years to a passport in some of these countries, such as the Netherlands, Ireland. I think Spain's 10 years now. Switzerland's definitely 10 years. I did look at living there for 10 years, but how I see Geneva, one of my favourite countries is Switzerland, but how I see Geneva in the next 10 years is really declining if that then makes sense. So for me, the financial difference is enormous, especially when I've seen people, I've got school friends who've never worked a day in my life. They just renovate properties. They've got family money for years, you know, for decades, for generations, right? But the amount of, I was probably worth less than them, and now I'm probably worth a lot more, you know? And a large part of that is to play is that that my tax burden was always very minimal. And I was able to reinvest and obviously compound growth later. It's fair to show for it, if that makes sense. So the difference in, even spending 6 or 7 years in certain tax havens, yes, comes at increased living costs. Yes, I may not own 6 UK properties worth 200 grand each, but my investment portfolio absolutely smashes everyone else's. You know what I mean? For my age group in particular. Not trying to sound cocky there. But again, it's not just about money. I would say it's also about opportunity. The people I've met along my journey, and now I own multiple businesses that produce, over 7 figures in revenue, is a complete compound effect of my network as well. So if someone was my age, I would tell them, yes, definitely get out there, get to Shenzhen, China, get to Hong Kong, get to Singapore, get to Switzerland, get to Prague. I've met, my team today is actually all the people I've met around the world. Some of these people actually are a lot richer than me. So would I ever go back to the UK? Not a chance. I've not one chance. Would I visit 100%? I think I'm going to be there in June. Might go in June. Going to miss the April showers. Go there in June. I've got a family event going on. Well, a family friends event. It'll be really nice. As long as the weather is good, it'll be a really, really nice time to see everybody. I generally go back 2 to 3 or 5 times a year just for a few days. If I'm nearby Europe or something, I'll just pop in. On a quick flight. Go say hi to dad. Go say hi to mum. X, Y, Z, if actually in the UK at the time. But yeah, if you're sitting in the UK right now, frustrated, wondering if there's another way, there is. I know you've already seen the news. The news is horrendous, absolutely horrendous, right? But again, it takes commitment, and it's not made for everybody. It comes with serious drawbacks. You might say, oh, he's in a nice Bali villa, he's in this, he's in Hong Kong, he's in business class, going to Emirates, Dubai, whatever. Yes and no, it comes at big drawbacks. Do you not think I miss a pint at the local pub when everyone's there on a Saturday? Not really, but sometimes, yeah, you do. So that's a really honest opinion about me leaving the UK. If I look at the UK situation now, I need to sit up for this one because it's bloody ridiculous, okay? So it's really embarrassing now to be British. It used to be fantastic, After the World Wars, it even got more embarrassing when America stole the currency from us and the empire, essentially, right? But income taxes, they're not just the inflation, the cost of living, more people being dragged into higher tax brackets, national insurance is climbing, capital gains rates are increasing. The non-dom regime, which I obviously used to enjoy, is now being gutted. The direction is clear. The UK wants more and more of your money, and they're closing the doors of people who want to try to structure around it. Yes, we can do stuff in the Isle of Man. There's lots of stuff we can do with UK clients. But do I want to be spending, 90 days a year in the Isle of Man? There's a reason why there's no restaurants there, because people just leave the lights on and go, So the direction is clear. At the end of the day, the UK is not on a trajectory that I want to be involved with, especially lifestyle-wise and cost of living-wise, everything-wise. If you're an entrepreneur and living in the UK, I find it completely bizarre. I think most have left. The figures are astonishing. I'm not going to pull up the figures. You can search them yourself, but they're completely awful. But you should definitely understand your options, and that's what we can help you do here at HPT Group. You can obviously apply to become a client below. And at the end of the day, I look back, it's only non-regrets, if that makes sense. The only one regret I had was actually taking off my braces, if you want an honest thought. But wow, I have missed the UK, but I'm so thankful I was so ballsy at a young age, just be like, yeah, why not, Let's move to the Netherlands. And obviously that first move allowed me to then have the confidence to trust the universe as such, and trust wherever I go to is okay. Yes, some moves have been bad, such as Gibraltar. I really like Gibraltar. It was really good for me. I was going to end up paying, I think, 16 or 18% tax. I could run holdings through there. It was a really, really good corporate structure. Some really good contacts there. I had a really, really nice network, but again, it just didn't work for my missus, as I'm sure you guys would understand. Family is very important, especially as you get older. But yeah, at HPT Group, we do help entrepreneurs all over the world, not just the UK. We've helped Australians, we've helped the Dutch, we've helped Germans, we've helped Qataris, we've helped Americans who've renounced their passports in terms of corporate restructuring. We've helped Americans move to Puerto Rico. We've helped people move to the Caribbean. Dozens of types of countries, dozens of types of clients, and dozens of types of solutions. Everyone is very unique, and it's all very, very tailored to you. And that's obviously why we do offer our consulting packages, because that is what is generally the best. There's no conflict of interest, and we're able to help you not only from personal experience, but also from a legal standpoint. We're not legal tax advisors, but we work with those legal tax advisors around the world. You can imagine the network I've gone and built up just even through this business, and even before that. It's lovely, to be in such a nice environment of so many friendly entrepreneurs who generally just want the best structure for them. That's always very unique, and also want to be updated on how that can change. What else could they do? What's better? What is this? Adding all these parts together can be incredibly overwhelming, and that's obviously why we saw value in clients see value in us, because we're able to do that for you and really create that roadmap for you, give you that peace of mind, and then obviously connect the parties as needed if you did need them. Okay. So over that, guys, I will leave you to it. Hopefully that's a nice personal experience from you, and I'll see you in the next video, I guess. Please like and subscribe, and speak soon. Bye-bye.